Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
I love this one. The coronavirus quarantine has turned us into dogs. We roam the house all day looking for food. We are told no if we get too close to strangers. And we really get excited about car rides. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America. Good morning. We need a patriot to call in with a Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning on a Wednesday. And a good morning to you out there in Radio Lands up at the ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. Safe, clean environment, and the best in tires for you to take your vehicle in, and also the best in service. Please stop in and see any one of the 7 Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers today. Along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Good morning, Patriot, with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, good morning to you, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Attaboy Wheels, way to go, my dear friend. And right now it's time for the weather, and the weather brought to you by Roger and the crew. Roger Wilco and out over at K&R Rental. Well, we were so blessed of all of our sponsors, and I want to just start off the program by saying thank you to all of them for staying with us in these tough times. K&R Rental, 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn on the Burley-Paul Highway. The rental of the best doggone tools and equipment that you need, and especially right now this time of the year, with the tools you need for your garden or fixing up your lawn, all the power rakes, all the garden and lawn equipment, rototillers, you name it, it's there at K&R Rental, 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Sunny skies for today, but wind is definitely going to be a factor. Here's a look at your weather forecast for today. We are expecting mostly sunny skies by the time we hit the afternoon, but the wind is definitely going to be a factor, and we're going to be in a wind advisory from about noon until 10 o'clock tonight. Gusts as high as 50 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 67 for tonight. Hopefully that's going to be dying down just a little bit. Clear skies in the overnight hours, and we are expecting a low of 33 for tomorrow. Sunny skies, high of 63 with an overnight low of 36 by Friday. It is going to be warming up. Sunny skies, highs in the low 70s, mid-70s by Saturday, possibly 80 by Sunday. That's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Old Gomer used to say, Shazam! Shazam! It sounds good to me. And the weather brought to you by K&R Rental. Hello, Roger and the crew. They are there to serve you. And you know what? If you're not sure what kind of tools and equipment you need for the job that has to be done, all you've got to do is call them before you stop over. Talk to them a little bit. They'll have everything ready. 678-3122. K&R Rental on the Burley-Paul Highway. You stop in and see those really, really nice folks today. Want to also give a great big shout out and a thank you to our friends over at Ramsey Heating and Electric. Hello, Ramsey's. I wished we could get Rita. She's so busy over there. I mean, honest to goodness, they're swamped, and I'd love to get her back on the radio again. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. They open the doors at 7:30 in the morning till 5 Monday through Friday, and literally all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs. Yep, they got it all. I urge you to stop in or give them a call at 678-0459. Open 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. Ramsey Heating and Electric. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Sir.
You know, this deal with Tara Reade and Biden, my heart goes out to her because she was really in a difficult position when she worked for him. And as an example, my wife, when she was 14 years old, she worked at a drive-in restaurant in Twin Falls. And the assistant manager, who thought he was really neat, I guess, but he'd rush up against her, and do things that you're just not supposed to do. And she was terrified, but she didn't dare go to anybody because of the repercussions.
All I'm going to say is this, and I think you'll understand and appreciate where I'm coming from. Right now, again, Keith, as I stress on this program, everything is speculation and allegation. We don't know the truth. It would be frivolous and stupid of me or anyone else to really condemn one person over the other until all the facts are in. I honestly feel that we will find out that she is telling the truth, but I'm not going to say anything or condemn anyone until I find out exactly what's going on, and I think you feel that way too.
I do too, but my heart goes out to these, especially women that were mistreated at their job because they lived in fear, and that's the problem that we have. And then to bring it out 25, 30 years later is very difficult.
Yeah.
And it's going to ruin this gal's life no matter how it turns out.
Well, again, that's speculation because you don't know of any impending deals, of book deals, telling the story, gratuities paid. I mean, there's so many things that we cannot say, and I won't. I'm not going to carry this any further until we find out the real facts. But I guarantee you one thing, I promise you one thing, that when the facts are out there, I will come out and we will have the story in its entirety and point fingers where they need to be pointed. And I appreciate your call, as always, for bringing up a good newsworthy story, but I'm going to wait and find out and not speculate. Keith, God bless you. Thank you so much.
Good for you.
All right, sir. Thank you. And right now, all calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Please give me a call on the landline. Love to hear from you. Don't forget our friends at Dino Septic Service. They've expanded their business to better serve all of us. That's right. Septic tank pumping. They do a great job. Backhoe services, septic tanks and drain fields installed, sewer and sink drain lines cleaned. You don't want to be messing with that stuff. They do. That's their business, and they do it so well. Call them at 436-6526 or 678-1638. Absolutely fast, fare-friendly service. I can attest to that. They've done work for us. They are great. Dino Septic Service with a big truck that says smells cargo on the way. Dino's Septic Service. Real quick reminder, and I don't want anybody to say that I didn't remind you, and that's, of course, Mother's Day is this Sunday, and Nature Nursery and Market at 120 East Highway 81 in Burley. Can't miss them. Great place, nice people. They're having a Mother's Day sale that starts tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, and they're offering 10% off hanging baskets and select trees, 15% off home decor items, and if you spend $150 or more, you receive a free gift. All right. These are people that really believe in customer service, and I urge you to get in there. Nature Nursery and Market, 120 East Highway 81 in Burley, and the big Mother's Day sale starts tomorrow. Good morning, everybody. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. As I said a week ago, very unfortunately, the meat industry and the meat chain to the consumer is in trouble. We had a very, very highly educated and knowledgeable person on our program to address this issue, Mr. Dave Roper, and we're looking at somewhat limited supplies going into various grocery stores and fast food chains, etc., and I hope and I pray that this is a short-term problem. One of the things I'm worried about, honestly, is I do not want the wacky, out in the outer limits minds of the activists to think that they have won in telling us what we can or can't eat. You don't want to give these people a toehold. The folks that want us to do nothing more than possibly eat bugs and become vegetarians or whatever. No, I hope that the ranchers and feedlots, everyone can stay in business during this terrible time, and it is a terrible time, and we get all the packing houses and everything back in running order, and the supply is opened up and readily available for the consumers, and I mean that. It's got to happen. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't forget our friend Kevin at Certified Pest Control. Remember that name, Certified Pest Control. And they're offering an advanced spider and bug treatment starting at just $39.95 with a 3-month guarantee. We have used them. I've said this every day on the air, but it's worthy of saying. A couple of years ago when the mice and the vole problem was so bad all over, they came in, and let me tell you, the mice and voles were running for new property, man. They got out of here. They left Dodge City. And Kevin does a great job, and I urge you to go to the website, avoidbugs@gmail.com. That's avoidbugs@gmail.com. Book your appointment today with Certified Pest Control. They are good. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. Good to visit with you.
Well, how are you?
Go ahead.
I said, how are you, lovely lady?
I am so good, but I am extremely concerned about the beef deal, the pork deal, the chicken deal, the meat deal. And because there actually is no shortage, as we all know, and I hope people are educating themselves. But I was very disturbed to hear on one of the news channels last night that they are now supporting and promoting the meatless meat.
Yeah.
Which you can't really call them meat, but that's what they do as a substitute.
Yeah.
And if you will do your research, you will see that there are some big money holders that have an interest in this.
Yep.
And I believe they're pushing their agenda.
I could not agree with you more. Next week, we're going to be having a gentleman on the program that's going to discuss this and talk about possible price fixing and talk about manipulation of the market. While our ranchers and feedlot operators literally have no place to go and no prices to obtain with their product, their beef, and the same with the dairy industry also, we are seeing people on the other end of the scale profit. And then we're also seeing this insidious movement of a meatless society being pushed by these meatless burgers, etc. These are a group of very evil people that are using this problem, I think, to put a lot of money in their pocket and try to transitionalize the way America eats and enjoys their food. I think you and I agree.
Exactly. And I almost think it's part of the evil plan.
I do too. I do too.
That they're involved in, But I just wish people would educate themselves and look at things and research things because it's out there. I think as a nation, we have been so spoiled for so long, and everybody's had it so good that we've hit a bump in the road, and everybody wants to put their head in the sand.
Let me ask you.
We've got to start standing up for our livelihood.
I couldn't agree more.
They don't drink milk. Oh, I don't eat that much meat. I won't be affected.
Yeah.
You will be affected. It is a trickle-down effect, and everyone is going to be affected, especially in a farming, ranching community.
Oh, you know what? And you're so right on this, and now you really tripped my trigger on this morning because it's the local communities, whether it's out at the Raft Rivers or whether it's up at the Dietrichs or whether it's here in the Murtaughs or wherever the heck it might be, the local communities, the local school boards, that really make an appeal for people to help support them. And then you've got the smaller businesses that are out there trying to shell out good, hard-earned money to help maybe the football team get new helmets or maybe have the cheerleaders get new outfits. You're so right on this. And I do not want to see not one single person, not one suffer. But my question to you is, honestly, and I know you've been in the livestock business all your life, what can we do? It seems like big money manipulators are in charge, and I haven't figured out a way yet to take a scissors and cut the cord. Do you know what we can do?
I don't. I wish I had a magic wand and I could just tell you all the answers. I know last 10 days ago, we went in some grocery stores and just asked the butcher himself, where does this meat come from? Where does this meat come from? And a lot of them said, well, we can't tell you. It's not packaged. People need to educate themselves, knowing that there are beef coming from foreign countries
yes.
that will come into the United States, and then it's packaged in the United States, so therefore it's marked U.S. beef.
Yeah.
We've got to educate ourselves. We've got to look at the labeling. We've got to stand up and protect ourselves.
I have been a
beef out there. Call around, support your local rancher, somebody that has a beef for sale.
Absolutely.
We've got to start protecting our own industry.
I have said for a long time, and I've taken heat for it by some in this community, I have been an advocate for a long time of cool, country of origin labeling. Origin. I didn't say where it was packaged. I said country of origin, where it was grown and then went to the processing plants and then to the consumer. Country of origin. And I absolutely will maintain I'm right, and I don't care who, whether it's a big conglomerate group or whatever, they can fight me, they can go after me, but I'm going to maintain that that's the best way to go.
Exactly. And we as a nation are to blame because we want it fast, cheap, and easy.
Amen.
We've been spoiled to this, and it's like, well, this one's $2 less, or I'll buy it. And same way with American made. We've outsourced all our things because we want it cheaper. We've just got to start standing up for America and American made goods, ranchers, farmers, producers, small businessmen.
Amen. Amen. I just really thank you. I mean, you and I have known each other for a long, long time, but this conversation meant, I think, the most to me of all the times that you've called in because, boy, what you've said, it carries a lot of weight, and I just hope and pray that people listen to what you said and support the red, white, and blue of America, not Chile, not anywhere else in the world, Brazil, etc., but America. I am gung-ho, and I don't give a rip if some of these so-called editorialists that work for the Times News in Twin want to write a story about this. I'm a white nationalist. I can't change the color of my skin. I'm proud of this country more so than any other nation on earth. I'm a white nationalist that want to see us succeed. If people don't like that, it's their problem, not mine.
Exactly. And I'll starve to death before I eat one of those blankety-blank plant-based boogers.
Have you ever tasted one of those?
well. You ever grilled the cardboard by accident?
I'm just going to say, welcome to a party of absolute meaningless food. Thank you so much for your call. God bless you. I got to run. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Appreciate all you do.
That was very, very well stated. We need to support America. We need to support our farmers and ranchers and the beef industry. And if this is price fixing, next week I'm going to do some exposés on this. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Caller, you got to bear with me a minute. Wheels, I'll play this word about the May 19th primary and be right back. Thank you.
Idaho's primary election is on Tuesday, May 19th. Here's Representative Fred Wood to explain this year's voting by mail.
All citizens who are registered to vote will receive postcards by mail from the Secretary of State within the next 2 weeks. Please fill out this application to request your absentee ballot, then mail. When you receive your ballot, vote and mail according to instructions prior to May 19th. Please vote absentee ballot prior to May 19, paid for Fred Wood campaign.
Attaboy, Fred. Thank you very much. And also, I want to mention to you Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. Why am I mentioning this? Not only is it a great business with starter repair, alternator repair, etc., it's for sale. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, 635 21st Street in Hebron. A great business. I mean, we're talking about a turnkey operation. Great building, great location, all the equipment and the knowledge that Doug has to train the buyer, the business, and there you go. 635 21st Street in Hebron. The number to call, 878-4991 or 431-5282. It's a great business opportunity. Don't pass it up. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair in Hebron, for sale for you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Well, isn't that ironic? It had to be you.
They should write a song like that. It had to be you.
Yeah, it sounds like it might be a top 10 song.
Yeah, I agree that we need to know where our food comes from. We need to know this. I mean, the American people need to stand up and demand. And that Impossible Burger, have you read the ingredients that goes in it?
Yeah.
I can't pronounce half of them.
Well, you can. Terrible. That's the word.
I mean, hear these people talking, I want to eat healthy, eat healthy, and look at all those chemicals they put in there to try to make this thing taste like a beef.
I tried one, and I'm going to be very, very honest with everybody out there. And if somebody that has a fast food chain that serves this garbage, and that's what I think it is offended, you're not advertising on my program anyway, so who cares? I took one bite of it, and you can ask my wife, I spit it out.
Yeah. I've never tried one, and I have no intentions of doing so because I do not want to put all those chemicals into my body.
Yeah. No, I'm going to support our farmers and ranchers, and I think they're getting really, really shortchanged right now, literally, with the low prices, nowhere to go, the packing houses that have been shut down, and the manipulation. Underline the word manipulation that's going on in the industry right now is absolutely pathetic.
It is. They shut packing houses down, and so they're telling the ranchers and farmers that they can't buy their beef because they can't process them, but yet we got boatloads of meat coming from foreign countries.
Yeah.
We have no idea what they were fed. So why it's a one way, I think, for the government to try to take America down.
Well, you know something, and we've got another caller. I don't want to keep people waiting too long, Doug, but I'm going to say this. Tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer. And again, for those in the audience that don't believe, that's your problem, not ours. I'm going to have a special segment tomorrow on prayer for this nation because I think it's about time we got some dirty knees, and got on those knees and asked God for guidance because right now we're not doing it on our own.
Exactly. And I've seen a sign on the local church over here that says God answers an email.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
He does. And, there's one thing I want to bring up. I was talking to a gentleman from Utah yesterday who's one of my suppliers. He stops in every once in a while. And I asked him about mittens. And he says he ranks mittens with Chuck
Schumer. He says the most dangerous place to be around Mittens is between him and a camera.
Yeah.
He says they don't like him in Utah. They don't like him at all.
Well,
and he's also suggested something, and I told him I was going to run with it. I says, I like that idea. You know, these Democrats are saying that people don't pay enough taxes, the rich don't pay enough taxes, and here they're wealthy themselves. He had a solution for it. He said, just put 2 lines on your tax form. One is a question. Do you think you pay enough taxes, yes or no? If the answer is no, please add this amount to my taxes and send it in.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about it. If they think they don't pay enough taxes, these billionaires are screaming that, oh, we don't pay enough taxes. Here you go. Here's your chance.
I am so afraid, and I've got to run. This other caller's waiting, Doug, but I am so afraid of this next election. I don't know what to say other than what I've said many times in the past. America, do you want to take exit stage left and go completely towards socialism, a revamping and a destruction of our Constitution and our values and our freedoms, and higher taxes through the roof for free education, universal income, a healthcare system that'll absolutely damn and incriminate everybody and take away the benefits of a healthcare system? Is that what you want? Is that what you really want?
Well, they need to look at Venezuela. And there's one thing that is a proven fact through the history of the world. You can vote in socialism, but you have to shoot your way out of it.
You got it, man. Yeah, and the way things are going, it might be with a bow and arrow. Got to run, Doug. Thank you. God bless you, man. I appreciate it.
You bet. Everybody, let's do what we can for our senior centers. I know I sound like a broken record, but they need our help.
Amen.
Just like everybody else does out there, but do what we can.
Amen. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. Caller number 2, you're on the air. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. Well, you know, this nation was founded as a Christian nation. Of course, that's been disputed by later Supreme Court justice when they took the prayer and Bible reading out of school in 62 and 63. Well, I tell you, it was Alex de Tocqueville came over from France in the 1830s. And the greatness of this country, he found, was the flaming righteousness coming from the pastors and the preachers over the pulpits of our churches. And, you know, everybody, this whole deal about separation of church and state, of course, has been a total lie. And this has been part of the destruction of our Christian culture. And, of course, you see, this is the part deal. We cannot, even though it's in the Bill of Rights that we can, the freedom to worship God and to, and the exercise thereof is not taking place. We can't, big congregations can't meet. Small congregations, if they have enough big enough building, can certainly do that. But anyway, I hope that we get to the point where we're in a situation, Zeb, that we can get back. We need to expose the lies that are going out there. Anybody that's dying right now is basically added to the COVID-19.
Yeah, let me jump in, Adrian. We've got to have a two-way here. I can't just go on here. Number one, I heard a report last night that came out, and I haven't substantiated it yet this morning, but it was by a very reliable source on the news last night, or I wouldn't repeat it this morning, that over 50%, I did not know this, and I'm checking it out. Deanne's checking it out as we speak. 50% of the people that have died directly, I want to use that word directly to the coronavirus, have been 80 years of age and over. Now, there are so many extenuating circumstances with old age, whether it's heart disease, kidney failure, diabetes, whatever the case might be. And I really start to wonder how many legitimate, and underline that word legitimate, claims of death have been absolute to the coronavirus.
Well, Dr. Burks let the cat out of the bag about almost a month ago now, said anybody that dies with the virus, even though they died of a heart attack or had cancer, or the one lady that died here in the Magic Valley, I guess she was, really had extreme health situation, and so the virus took her out. But here's the deal. Only over 50% of the people never have symptoms.
Yeah.
And so they'll find that they're using this number about cases. The cases don't mean diddly squat. The death rate is 0.1% in California. It's 0.03, 1/33% is the death rate. But it is the elderly people, so we need to protect those people, the elderly, and use social distancing. And in those cases, but the social distancing has never been proven that it's really all it does is delay what we can call herd immunity.
Yeah, and there's something. Hold on. The other thing that's absolute idiocy is you, as a plant scientist, and you know this is true. There's nothing healthier than being outside. I mean, if you want to have a disease spread amongst your family and then be a contagion factor, stay inside and breathe the same stale, disease-infected air. People need to get outside, and the incompetency of many of these people saying, "Oh, stay inside, don't leave your front door, good heavens, we're going to lock you in," that's absolute stupidity. I've got to run, Adrian. I'm way over time. I got to run. Thank you.
That is really true. We get vitamin D when you get out there. You get the exercise. It's good for your body, which we, getting around home, sitting and watching TV, you don't get that. So get out and get some fresh air. The virus can't stand the sunlight. You can't live out there. And so we need to get out. But we need to be aware. Get hold of the governor again, 334-2100. We've got to stop this whole deal. And some of the churches are not going to be able to meet until July. I mean, big congregations.
Baloney.
System set up right now. So we need to get back to the First Amendment and be able to have freedom of worship along with everything else.
All right.
Thank you, Deb. I appreciate all you do.
Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate your call. And as far as the churches are concerned, I'm an advocate of being very cautious and opening up on Sunday. I don't care what size the congregation is. You can sit down with your board of directors or whatever and figure out how you can come up with social distancing, how you're going to handle the communion ceremonies, etc., but open up. The government had no right to shut you down in the first place. You talk about essential? Churches are essential. Barry Equipment and Rental, sales, service, and parts, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, and the Nampa location for all the equipment, like your Bobcats. They got all the great inventory of all the Bobcats, all the Doosan wheel loaders and excavators, and, your scissor lifts, trenchers for lifting and digging and pushing and carrying. I'm telling you, get a hold of them today. Like I said, in Burley, get a hold of old Buffalo Bill Cody over there. And then in Twin Falls, it's Eli. And then, of course, the Nampa location, Barry Equipment and Rental, sales, service, and parts, waiting right now to serve you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, speaking of churches, last Saturday, my cousin, 17, we laid him to rest, and which is a terrible thing, because he was such a good kid. Not all young people are going the right direction, but this boy was, and we hate to lose all good people. It's a terrible shame, but we went to church. There was a lot of people there. They had the chairs spaced front to back, but if you wanted to sit with your family, you could sit with your family because you're with them. And so people had the choices to do what they wanted. Everybody was respectful. Nobody wore a mask. Everybody was, it was just, everybody respects everybody's space. And we can do this if we are allowed to. We don't need Brad Little telling us how to live. And so it worked, and we need to get back to church. I agree.
I think it is to the point where churches, like everything else, are being diminished and pushed out of people's minds as a non-essential, not necessity. And I'm afraid for churches. I'm afraid for congregations. I talked to a pastor the other day that in no uncivil terms said, we're going back to worship. And I think all churches should. I will not stand for a governor or anyone in government telling me that my faith is regulated and that I can't observe my faith and go to church. And I'm going back to church this Sunday.
Right, and so we just need to, get back to doing what we do. I need to see parking lots of businesses where people work there full of cars. We social distance in some places and others we don't. We just have to do what we can do. It is what it is. It will pass. And we need to have faith in the fact that our immune systems were designed by God and are capable of a lot.
Amen. Randy, I always appreciate your call. That's very well stated. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. All right. Caller number 2, you're on the air quickly before I do the weather. Thank you.
Okay, real quick. There's, where in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights can a governor make a law and enforce it? Isn't it the state, the Senate, and the House have to make the laws?
I said that.
Be enforced?
I said that yesterday. There's been a supersedence of really the regulatory means and methods of where and how laws are made in the state, and I feel like our legislature has been hamstrung, and I just think that we've got to get back to the basics of what really is said or not what's assumed.
Exactly, and you tell me how a big box store is a necessary business, but a mom and pop that sells the same thing is not.
Yeah, and I said something the other day, and some clown, and that's who I think he is, called me on my cell phone and berated me after the program, and quite frankly, I just basically shined him on. He didn't have the courage to call during the show, so I don't give him much credence after that. When I was in contesting Governor Whitmer of Michigan, and her idiotic stand about leaving the big box stores open to go shop, but cordoning off with police tape certain areas in the garden department because she didn't want people buying tomato plants and gardening seed or gardening tools, that was insane.
It was. And like that young gal down in Arizona, that judge ought to be disbarred.
You want to wait a minute? Right now, you've touched on that story, and I think it's worth right now that we highlight this. I'm going to give a very short synopsis on this story, and because I've got to go to the weather. But Doug, I'll have you quickly respond. A hair salon owner, a mother of 3 children, trying to support her kids, a single mom, had a hair salon, and she kept it open. She was not going to close it for the coronavirus. She was ordered to go to in front of the judge. She was under arrest. The judge told her that she either had the option of apologizing for her actions of being selfish or 7 days in jail. And this girl, this woman, stood up and said, "Judge, it is not being selfish for me as a business owner and a sole proprietor and a mother of 3 to sit there and try to feed my kids and pay my bills." And the judge, the stupid judge, still gave her 7 days in jail.
Exactly. He should be disbarred. He should be ashamed of himself. I mean, that man has no more. Justice is supposed to be blind. This man is political.
Yeah, there's a difference between being blind and just dumb.
Exactly. And that veteran in New Mexico.
Yes.
$60,000 fine because he wouldn't close his gun shop. But yet everybody, the sheriff even has to drive 100 and some miles to Albuquerque to buy ammo.
Show me in the Constitution, or show me anywhere, that they being politicals, have the right to make a complete court case out of people going to their jobs, doing a legal living, and trying to pay their bills.
Exactly. There is no law on the books that says a small business has to close, that it is not unnecessary.
This is insane, and we are not standing up. Instead of acting like American Gothic, the painting, holding the pitchfork, we should be prodding the pitchfork on somebody's behind to get out of our lives.
Exactly. So I'm glad I got your blood pressure up. So,
Deanne, bring me a pill, Deanne. Bring me a pill. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
All right. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to tell you the weather brought to you by our friends, and that's Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And, boy, I'll tell you what, communication gives us peace of mind and helps maintain emotional balances. And when you can't hear, it just is a very tough scenario, and it gets tougher. You need to make sure your hearing health is taken care of, and I urge you to call Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids at 312-0957. That number again, 312-0957. They are right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room, serving you with the best technology available. Mount Harrison Audiology. And right now, here's the weather.
Sunny skies for today, but wind is definitely going to be a factor. Here's a look at your weather forecast for today. We are expecting mostly sunny skies by the time we hit the afternoon, but the wind is definitely going to be a factor, and we're going to be in a wind advisory from about noon until 10 o'clock tonight, gusts as high as 50 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 67 for tonight. Hopefully that's going to be dying down just a little bit. Clear skies in the overnight hours, and we are expecting a low of 33 for tomorrow. Sunny skies, high of 63 with an overnight low of 36 by Friday. It is going to be warming up. Sunny skies, highs in the low 70s, mid-70s by Saturday, possibly 80 by Sunday. That's a look at your weather for Zebeth Ranch.
I'll tell you what, Gina, thank you for the weather forecast. And again, a reminder that our dear friends, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, they are doing all they can to serve you during these hard times. And they are, of course, also offering the best in hearing treatment. So please contact them today, 312-0957, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. You know, Doug brought that story up. I saw the video of this hair salon owner, this young woman in Texas, single mother of 3, trying to feed her family, pay her bills, keep her business open, and make sure that her employees have some semblance of an income. And the judge, after she was arrested and fined, the judge stood there and said, well, we're going to still give you 7 days in jail. Take the breadwinner away from the kids, cause absolutely a disturbance and disruption in the children's lives, create a stigma of mom going to jail. This judge is an idiot. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, well, good morning, Zeb. You know, we used to have such a thing as tar and feather judges and such that didn't do right. I guess that's gone by the wayside. That's all I need to say about that. Another thing I heard on our local news just there at 8 o'clock, that they said Idaho went into this situation with a lot of unemployment money, so we were all right. We probably will be, depending on how long this pandemic lasts.
That's right.
Well, I can tell you how long it'll last. It'll last as long as the news media keeps promoting it, and as long as those that want it to go on, it will go on. So that's how long it will be.
You know what you just said.
I never believed their figures that they give on this on the death toll.
Yeah.
But they say as a result of corona, not necessarily died of corona.
Yep, there you go.
And I got to think about that. You know, there are a lot of deaths from it. People committing suicide because they lost their job or lost their life savings. And so that was as a result of corona. Yeah, they're right there.
Yeah. You know, what you just said a moment ago, I want to highlight quickly before I take the next call. Stay on the line. You just said something that is so true. I honestly believe, and it's not a conspiracy theory at all, I honestly believe there are those very insidious, evil people in our society that want to see the elongation of this virus and what problems it causes because it aids and abets what they're trying to do to America. I totally agree with you on your statement.
Well, I believe that, and I believe that it is whatever group that wants to bring America down that's doing it. And I think you and I both know who that might be.
Absolutely. Sir, you make yourself a point to call more often because I enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
You bet, Zeb. You have a good day and try to keep your Stetson on.
I don't chase well. Okay. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you much. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Jim. You know, the hypocrite award should definitely go to the mayor of Chicago, who goes and gets her hair cut and justifies it because she is a public figure and she has to look her best.
You know, and there was another statement that she made that absolutely made me madder than looking her best for the news media. She made a statement that all people should absolutely be incensed about. She said, well, I'm concerned about my personal hygiene. What about the rest of us? They sell a whole lot more right guard than just hers, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I mean, to look at her, it made me want to just grab her and shake the daylights out of her because she is so hypocritical.
Yeah, and besides that, Keith, she had an ugly haircut anyway.
Well, I don't think she was a pretty woman to start with. So.
It doesn't make any difference when you sit up there. When you sit in front of a TV camera and say, well, I'm exempt from these restrictions because I'm in front of the TV camera, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm very concerned about my personal hygiene. That was a comment that right there, the bomb went off, and I said, lady, you are detestable, you are a lowlife, you have no business doing anything in public office. You are not a serving individual.
Yeah. Now, if she had said something about, I believe in keep my hands clean or something.
Oh, yeah.
But she literally attacked everybody that was listening.
Absolutely. Keith, I'm so glad you brought that up because it made my blood pressure go higher. Thank you for a job well done. God bless you, man. Thanks.
It's my job.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Calls welcome, 436-2244. Kent McClellan is running for Minidoka County Commissioner, and he would love your vote. Absolutely. He's the incumbent and wants to stay there serving you. Absolutely. And the primary election this year is going to be on May 19th, and it's going to be through the balloting by mail. So be sure and get your ballot now. Don't forget, call and get your ballot. And they will help you because Kent McClellan wants to keep on serving you. 10 years as Minidoka County Commissioner, and of course also on the Mini-Cassia Veterans Board as an advisor and liaison with the county. He was not a vet, but he serves those that were and serves them well. Don't forget, vote for Kent McClellan for Minidoka County Commissioner, paid for by John A. Burt Stevenson. Time for one more call. Give me a jingle. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Here's something that just, I gotta say this. We are America. We are America. We are the people of the first three words in the Constitution. We, the people. We're not to be ordered by anyone to lose our freedoms and our rights and our livelihoods. The left, including some that are running for the highest office of the land right now, the presidency, they are using this crisis to fundamentally change America forever. Their words, not mine. The destruction of our Constitution, the destruction of our Bill of Rights, the destruction of our freedoms is only happening because you and I and everyone not standing up, not demanding that the powers that be back off. Remember that. It's still America, and it's still we the people. We're going to take a little break, send it over to Wheels in just a moment. Next hour, Dave Bigo and also Dr. Dennis Durrell. Don't miss it. Zeb at the Ranch, I'll be back in 7. Good morning and welcome back. Hour number 2 on this Wednesday, May 6th. Zeb at the Ranch, good morning to you. Our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations are open and serving you in a safe, clean environment with the best of tires and service to your vehicles. You stop in and see them today. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Along with Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, this good word for Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at the Georgia struggle. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal.
Western Waste Services, and don't forget, like I did last month, I had a dumpster set in here. We filled it up. They came and emptied it. We filled it up again, and they came and emptied it. Absolutely great service. I urge you to call them, Western Waste Services, 734-6969. Always at your disposal. You get a hold of them today. Right now, as I almost tipped over the microphone, but all is well in Radio Land, here's this good word for the May 19th primaries.
Idaho's primary election is on Tuesday, May 19th. Here's Senator Kelly Anton to explain this year's voting by mail.
The outcome of every election we have is determined by who shows up to vote. This year, Idaho's primary election is a mail-in only election. It's not ideal, and it's not the way we'd like to do it. But your vote does make a difference for all of us in Idaho. So please, first request a ballot, then mail it in, and make your voice heard. This message is paid for by the Anthem for Idaho Senate campaign.
Thank you very much, Senator Anthon. And also, quickly, before we go to our guest, I want to say a great big shout-out. And you talk about service. You talk about helping people. I'm talking about Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation with Nick Greenwell and all of his staff. Through these very trying times, they did everything humanly possible to serve the people that were recuperating from accidents or surgeries to make sure they stayed on the mend. I just can't say enough about the way that they do their job in serving you at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. I urge you to call the number and make an appointment so they can help you get back to being you. 678-1191. That number again, 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Let's go to the phone line right now. We have got a whole bunch of things to talk about with this great guy back in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that's, of course, Dave Bigo. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. I'm doing fine. Hope you are, too.
I am. There's so much going on in the news right now, and I want to start things off by talking about a lady that was a hair salon owner in Texas. and she did not close her business. Quite frankly, she couldn't afford to close her business. She is a single mother of 3 children, and she needed to feed her family and also create an aura of income for her employees, and she stayed open. Well, she was arrested and hauled before a judge, and the judge told her, either you apologize for your selfishness or you're going to spend 7 days in jail. She looked right at the judge and she said, Judge, it was not selfish. I pay my own bills. I'm a mother of 3. I wanted to make sure I had food on the table. That's not being selfish. And the judge didn't even listen to her and sentenced her to 7 days in jail. What in the heck is wrong with this picture, Mr. Bigo?
You know, because unfortunately, judges, attorneys, legal people, they tend to have a narrow bandwidth. You know, they kind of just look down the tunnel. They don't. Their peripheral vision isn't good, and they don't look out and look at the other things, and they should. And that's one of the problems we have with the judges all across the country, even with the Supreme Court at times. And we need them to open their eyes and think of things in a different light than just, this is the white and black ink in the legal books.
Dave, where is it? And please, I'm sure that you can recite chapter and verse, but where does it say that if you're running a legal business and you're running everything up front, paying your taxes, paying your bills, and everything else, where does it say that they can legally come in and close you down and throw you in jail?
I think it's, and I don't know the chapter and verse, but, it's when the governors and the president, they make direct orders to close the country down because of, a pandemic like this, and they need to do it. But still, when you back up into it and that and look at it, these people need to look at each case differently. Okay.
Well, I was being a little bit facetious because there's nothing written that way. And governors may have the power of up to about 60 days of being the governor and making decrees. But still, when you start talking about somebody having to either keep their business open and feed their family and or go to jail when other businesses are termed essential, that's ludicrous, stupid, and absolutely un-American.
Yeah, it's unfortunate what it's done across the country and that. And, I guess, Zeb, you have to look at the other side of it from a medical standpoint. Has it reduced the number of cases and deaths in this country overall? Probably so. And that's what they're looking at, is saving lives. And but obviously nothing happened that I know of. I heard about this case, too, of anybody getting sick when they were in to see her.
I would respectfully disagree with you in the saying that saved lives or saved the contraction of this disease. When you have a hardware store that's open as an essential, and you literally could have 200-300 people come in every day as compared to a jewelry store that only maybe has 2 or 3 people per hour, don't tell me that that's really going to be helping the health standards of that community.
Well, Zeb, I mean, you got to look at the overall picture, and that's what I'm looking at. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. There's some, and the way they did some of this stuff is very questionable. But in some big buildings, like buildings that we clean across the country, where you have thousands of employees in it, these were shut down and that, and because the chance of people spreading the disease were very, very high. And it made sense because we even had a few that didn't close down, but all of a sudden they had employees come down with it, a fair amount, and they had to close it down. And then we had to go in and sanitize it from top to bottom. So, it's a touchy thing. There's no two ways about it.
Well, I think that if safety and adherence to medical standards are met, masks, gloves, the wiping down of sanitation devices, etc., like what you provide and what you do, I don't see any reason why any business couldn't be deemed essential. because basically they're following the same guidelines. They're serving the public. And when you say one is essential and the other one is not, so you can go broke and go bankrupt, that's not right, and nobody's going to change my mind.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I've felt, and I've told you this for the last 2 or 3 weeks, that I think they need to open it back up anyway, because we've gotten to the point where it's not as bad a virus as what they think it is and all that, and we need to get people back to work and back in their jobs, and we got to get businesses growing again and all that kind of stuff. I agree with you 100%. So.
There was something said yesterday, Dave, that it bothers me. Every life, I don't care if it's an infant or if it's someone that's a teenager, middle age, or very elderly. Every life is so important. It's a God's gift. But when they mentioned yesterday that I believe the statement was over half of the supposed coronavirus-related deaths are with people 80 years old or older, you have to ask questions about, their age, their other physical impairments or problems all playing a part in this. I don't think these numbers are correct, and I think they've been skewed somewhat because of everything being lumped into coronavirus fatalities. Would you agree or not?
Well, it's I'm sure it's not as accurate as it should be, and but a lot of this too, people, even younger people who have come down with it and passed away, and in a lot of cases, it's already the previous health factor of these people and what kind of shape they were in physically, and I can see that being as a problem, because people who take care of themselves and stay healthy in that, when something like this comes around, are not as likely to get it as people who aren't taking care of themselves and have some health and other physical problems.
Absolutely. But you made the point a moment ago, and I think you and I definitely are going to be on the same page right now, is that we cannot any longer as a country sit back and let our economy slip away. If we go into another shutdown mode, you might as well buy a mule, because you and I are going to be going up getting coffee beans with Juan Valdez. That's a third world country atmosphere we're going to be living in.
Yeah, we can't have this continue to go on, because it's really tough, and it's sad, and we just. Again, Zeb, and I say it all the time, and people I'm talking to all the time, they agree with me. We just need to get the economy opened back up, and the governors, and I'll be honest, our governor here in Indiana, he's a good guy, but he's loosened some of the things, but he's still pushing off the full opening until probably the end of June.
Oh my!
And we need things to open up faster than that.
Absolutely. When you go back to work, there's so much to be said for attitude. And right now we're seeing, it's even sick to talk about. It hurts me. The escalating numbers of suicides and depressions and failed marriages, families distraught. I mean, that also is playing a big part in not getting back to work.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
So anyway, I wanted to just mention that problem to you this morning. There's something else that is really bothering me, and it's the way that America, not all of it, of course, but many, many, many of the media and offshoot groups are blaming the United States for this coronavirus. Politico newsletter came out and said, how they praised China for the way they handled the outbreak of the coronavirus. These people created and caused the outbreak in the first place. And anybody and everybody on the left is always quick to jump in and dust off their boots on America and condemn us. This is ridiculous.
Well, that's exactly right, Zeb, but they're trying to bring this country down, and I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because, some of the people that are working for Trump, like Dr. Fauci, he's been part of the left and the deep state before, and some of the things he's said and done and hasn't done, are indicators that he is trying to help the left. make Trump look bad and get him defeated this November and get a Democrat in there and also take over the Senate and, of course, have the House. And, again, and I've said this before on many of your shows, so they can turn this country into a socialistic, communistic country. And I don't know if you've seen this, too, but it's kind of interesting. But in the last couple of days, a couple articles have come out that they think that the two candidates for VP that Biden's looking at is Hillary Clinton. They think she may be at the top of Biden's list, but then there's a committee that's seeking to have him draft Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, those two people and what their background is and what they want to do with this country, it tells you exactly what I just said. They want to take us to the far left and bring us down.
Well, as a matter of fact, you kind of stealing my thunder there, Mr. Bigo, because that was next on my checklist, is talking about Michelle Obama. I think it goes without saying anyone that really looks at, listens to, and reads about the news in the last 4 weeks has been probably raising some eyebrows as to the amount of coverage that the media is giving Michelle Obama. She just came out with another story. The headline was, Michelle Obama says people not voting for Democrats is her trauma. She lays awake at night worrying about why people aren't educated enough to vote Democratic. All of this is lending credence to what you just said.
Yeah, and in this article I read this morning about it, it's they call it Vice President Michelle Obama. It has a nice, wholesome, terrifying ring to it.
Yeah.
And but it is one step closer to becoming a reality with a new push by left-wing activists to draft the former First Lady as former Vice President Jim Biden's running mate. They think because she can check off the boxes that the progressives have. She's black, she's female, she's straight, not transgender, and they're looking at all that kind of stuff. And of course, behind the scenes, they look at whoever it is, whether it's Clinton or Michelle Obama. Behind the scenes, they're going to run the presidency, and if it's Michelle, it's going to be her and former President Obama.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you about this, and I think a lot of the news media is kind of hooked on a worm in the river, and they can't spit it out. I think the news media, they came out this last week, and they started building up Stacey Abrams, and she is a black woman from Georgia that failed in her attempt to be the governor, and then she cried foul and said it was a rigged election, etc. And then there was the talk that there was absolutely behind closed doors a consensus that the Democrats were going to help push for Elizabeth Warren. When you start talking about whether it's Elizabeth Warren, Stacey Abrams, or whether Kamala Harris, they have aired their laundry for over a year trying to run for the presidential nomination, and to me, they're old news. But when you talk about Michelle Obama and how she stayed quiet most of the time up until the last 5 or 6 weeks, I think you're looking at a freshness that the media is trying to really pull out from behind the curtain and wham, bam, put her name in there with Biden, just like what your scenario is. We would have, of course, Michelle, underwritten by Barack, and then also the past administration of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Scares me to death.
Yeah, it could be bad, and it scares me too. And the Republican Party and people, conservatives, need to step up and support this president and the Senate, and do a great thing between now and Election Day. We're about 6 months away, and make sure that we have a backbone and do the right things and get our president reelected, and we hold the Senate. And take back the House.
Amen. Did you hear or have you been reading about this group called the Lincoln Project? It's a bunch of, a very small bunch of disgruntled Republicans that are doing everything they can to be negative to Donald Trump, our president, called the Lincoln Project. And one of the people is attorney John Conway, the husband of White House counselor Kellyanne Conway. Woo! How'd you like to be in that house at dinner time and looking at each other over the kitchen table?
Well, I can see utensils being thrown back and forth at each other.
Steak knives. But really, here you go with what you just said. These disgruntled Republicans, and I've got a list of them like John Kasich, of whom I have no respect for whatsoever, and others are out to try to get the head of Donald Trump on a silver platter. You know, it's almost like cutting your nose off to spite your face. A man that has created a great economy for all the states and done great things, even with the adversity of the dumb Democrats. Why do the Republicans, in very small numbers, I might point out, want to jump in and muddy the water? It makes no sense to me.
Because they're politicians instead of business people, and they just don't get the business background that Trump has, and how he knows how to make things happen and work and be successful and work hard and persevere and negotiate with other people. And everybody, even in part of those Republicans that you're talking about, of course, the far left say, Trump is too close to our enemies like China and Russia and every place like that. But the old saying is keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer.
Amen.
That's what Trump is doing.
Amen. Real quick, I've only got a minute left, but boy, this is kind of scary. Have you been hearing about these murder hornets that have come in from Asia? These dudes are really wicked looking. Have you followed this?
I've just seen a little bit on it, and yeah, they are wicked looking, but I really haven't had a chance to really, dig into it behind the scenes and that. It's sad.
Well, they are up here in the Northwest in our neighboring state of Washington, and they say that if you get stung 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 times, it could kill a human being. But when you look at these things over 2 inches long with over a 1/4 inch stinger, these dudes, they better figure out some way to get rid of them, because they're absolutely destroying our bee population, of which we need for pollination.
That's right. And you get some big fly swatters and take care of them.
You go out and take care of them with a fly swatter, not me. Have at it, Bigo.
What's that?
I said, have at it, Bigo. You're on your own.
I'm athletic. I could whoop them.
Well, you're going to have to jump high and tall, let me tell you. Hey, Dave Bigo, God bless you back in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's always a treat to have you on the program, and I wish you to stay safe, stay well. Thank you so much.
Same to you, and I sent you an email that you need to look at a little bit later.
I'll take a look, Dave. Thank you. Thank you so much. A good friend of mine, Dave Bigo, back in Indianapolis, Indiana, political analyst and author and businessman extraordinaire. Thank you very much. I want to remind you, too, about Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert, and the manager, Joel Hewart's staff, and his family. They really, really care, and when there's the passing of a loved one, boy, it's a hard time on everyone, and it's a very stressful time, and they can help and they will help, absolutely providing the families they serve with the best possible support and comfort, always with the highest ethical standards, with unquestioned integrity. They care. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. Number to call, 436-5636. And don't forget Joel Heward also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. I want to remind you, too, Mother's Day is this coming Sunday, and I really miss my mom. It was always a special time to visit with her and spend time. Well, I tell you what, Nature Nursery and Market at 120 East Highway 81 in Burley is having a Mother's Day sale tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. That's right. And they're offering 10% off on hanging baskets and select trees, 15% off on home decor. And if you spend over $150 or more, receive a free gift. They really care. It's a great customer experience at Nature Nursery and Market at 120 East Highway 81 in Burley. You stop over and they wish your mom a very happy Mother's Day. We've got some dear friends over there on Highway 24 that I want to acknowledge right now. And that's, of course, Let's Ride, where the fun is sold. Let me tell you, they've got all the side-by-sides, they've got all the four-wheelers, they've got it all. Crammed into a great big showroom. You go over and I say, I want that one. Oh, my goodness sakes, yes. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World with the new hours Monday through Friday 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 2, and a great service department, too, if you already have four-wheelers and side-by-sides that need to be serviced. Yep. Call the number 436-4771. Let's Ride. Absolutely where the fun is sold. Ladies and gentlemen, over in that area, and boy, when you talk about service to their customers, they are second to none. And I'm talking about Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. I know from personal experience that when you have a question, you need something done, bingo, Todd's right there with the staff to help you. Very responsive to your needs. Please call for an appointment, 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Really, really good people. Oh, we're going to go to the phone line right now. I always look forward to having this gentleman on our program. He's a straight shooter and tells us exactly what it is and why. And we're talking to Dr. Dennis Durrell. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, Zeb. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, listen, before we get too deep in our conversation, you're the author of a book called Your Healthcare Playbook, Winning the Game of Modern Medicine. I've got to ask you, and I think I've mentioned this to you before regarding your book. It is our health care, and we do need to win the game, but how do we do that?
Well, in my book, The Way You Win, and I use the NFL as an analogy, and I worked with the NFL on the book, interviewed a lot of people in the NFL. It's empowering patients to take control of their own health. So if you think about the patient's the most valuable player on the team, and the coach is the doctor. And if you think about a timeout where the quarterback comes to the side and the coach and the quarterback are contemplating sharing information, at the end of the day, that quarterback goes back in and calls the ultimate play with the advice of the coach. And that's really what we do in healthcare. Shared decision-making. At the end of the day, you are the most valuable player. You are empowered to be in control of your own health with all the best advice from your coach, your doctor.
You know, that was extremely well stated, Doctor, but I think you will concur with me that most people go in like meek sheep, and they sit there and they don't ask enough questions, they don't make enough demands, and I think a lot of doctors, a lot of hospitals, just basically roll over the patient and basically say, we're here, we're the professionals, you shut up, take this medicine, we're in control. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I'll agree with that. But as I talk about in my book, my sister had an example when she was seeing an orthopedic doctor, and he was looking at his watch and just basically holding his hand on the door, and she said to him, do you have somewhere to be that's more important right now? And that got his attention. He turned, listened to her. Originally he said, you're just going to need to do this. And she said, I want to be running again. I want to do this. You're not listening to me. So I know it takes a little bit. Sometimes bring an agent, like the NFL. Your agent is the one that's got your back. Bring a family member, bring a spouse, bring someone else. Have an agent there with you You might feel more empowered, but go ahead and speak up, because when you do, doctors, you'll get their attention and they should respond.
You know, Doctor, what you just said is absolutely the way I am. I will not let someone come in and act like, oh, gee, we're late for the tee-off time at 1:45. When I'm there spending the money, paying the bills, and I've got a problem, I will not let a doctor have his hand on the door handle, so to speak, like you said, looking forward to leaving and taking off the white gown and leaving the hospital. My time I'm paying for, I expect to get what I asked for.
Absolutely, and it still goes back to what I said. The patient is the MVP, the most valuable player, the star quarterback on this team, and we just need to act that way and realize that, you know, the team around you is important. They'll give you advice, but at the end of the day, you are responsible for your decisions. You call that play.
Your book, though, of all the chapters and everything and all the different topics that you cover, and I've asked you this question before, but I want to have you repeat it. When the person reads your book, your healthcare playbook, Winning the Game of Modern Medicine, what do you want them to take away and remember and practice from that point on?
Well, I think that the most important thing is that you are in charge of your own health. I mean, you are the one that's paying for the insurance. You're the one that's paying for the visit. You are the ultimate person that's going to live with whatever decisions you make. And so, you know, be proactive, be empowered. And in my book, I tell people if they have to go in the hospital, bring someone with you. It's very dangerous in hospitals. We do great things there. But I have a chapter on how to stay safe there. And the most important thing is having someone there to watch over, have that second set of eyes.
Absolutely. The reason I wanted to have you back on this program, the last time you were here, I was very impressed with your commentary about what's going on with the coronavirus and the treatment and how bad the pandemic really is, etc. Give us now, after 2 months of suffering in America, give us where you think we are and or where we should be.
Well, you know, as I've said all along, it's going to be more deaths, unfortunately and tragically, than the flu. Our worst flu season in recent year was 2017-18. We had 80,000 deaths. And I have felt all along that we will eclipse that, and we have. However, I do think that we are starting to see the number of people that are going to get infected from a person that has it, that reproductive number. Remember, it's somewhere about 2.2. That means a person who has it gives it to 2.2 people. We're seeing that number now across the United States drop down below 1. And when it's below 1, that means I'm going to give it to less than one person. And we tend to see the plateau, and we tend to see this start to fade out. So only 6 states now in the U.S. have an R0, or that R number over 1. And I think that's a good sign.
As a doctor, and I absolutely totally respect you and your profession, but as a doctor, are you going to take the side of, oh, well, we better hunker down and not let anybody out of their homes, no personal communication with anyone, don't go fishing, don't go play golf, or are you going to say it's time to go to work? Our economy and the crashing of the economy with the suicide rate up and depressions and marital breakups and everything, we've got to get back to work to save that aspect of our lives.
Yes, and I agree with that. I think I've been encouraged from data from Taiwan. They looked at 100 people that had COVID, and they traced 2,761 of their contacts, and only 0.7% got it. 22 people got it out of those 2,700 contacts. And interestingly enough, if you were exposed to a COVID patient after 6 days of symptoms, not a single patient got it. So it's those first 5 days that appear to be really important for transmitting. Another study showed that it's very, very unusual. They looked at 318 different cases, and then they traced another 2,700 contacts, and this was in China. And what they showed was only one case involved transmission outside. most of the time in both of these studies, it's household contacts and in transportation. And so if you put all that together, if you wear a mask when you're indoors, if you stay 6 feet away, and if you clean your hands and wash your hands, you're going to be fine. And if you're outside, it looks like you're pretty safe. So I think we need to leverage that. And if you think about weather patterns, I like to use this analogy. If you had a tornado somewhere, you're not going to be doing this everywhere around the country. You're going to be treating it locally, and that's what we have to do. And so imagine, though, if we're fine and then we have a weather pattern come in, we're going to have to bring it back. And that's if we have an outbreak, we're going to have to go back to what we've been doing. We're going to need to follow that.
You know, Doctor, let me ask you this, and this may sound like a naive question after all that's been said and done about this virus, but the actual transmission, explain it to me. Is it because of particles in the air, because of a cough and a sneeze that are inhaled? Is it perhaps touching someone? I mean, really, how is it transmitted?
It's transmitted most often by droplets. So we are talking, we're sneezing. Sneezing has the highest inoculum that would come out of your mouth of droplets. But even talking, singing has been shown to do it. And those droplets, they travel in the air, but they're pretty heavy and they fall down. And so when you're in the space, so when you're within 6 feet of someone, and they happen to be speaking vigorously, coughing, or sneezing, worst case, then those droplets, they get on you, whether it's your hands or your mouth or your face, and then that's how most people get it. However, if you think about measles is not a droplet, it's an aerosol, it's tiny, tiny particle. So it can hang in the air for a long time. And that's why that reproductive number is 18 for measles. That means if I have it, I'm probably going to give it to 18 people. And it shows you how infectious it is. This is not like measles, but it is that droplet. And yes, you can get it on surfaces. It can live on surfaces. And so it's less common, but definitely if someone coughs on a surface and you touch it, then you can get it as well. And that's why washing your hands, wearing a mask, those things, people, if they do that, they should be safe.
What about people like elderly people that need to get out? You can't stay in the house and vegetate and die. You have to get outside. You have to go to the grocery store. You may have to go to the cleaners. You may have to go to the doctor for some other related health problems. I mean, what kind of precautions for people 60 and up, let's say, can they adhere to but yet have some reasonable sense of security?
Well, stay in your bubble of friends, right? So, if you're, your circle, your family, if they're fine and they have been asymptomatic and they're not out there a lot, then stay in that group. Don't get in a group of 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 people. So that's number one. Number two, if you're going to go out and you have to go out, I know some grocery stores have an early morning hour for people that are more vulnerable, then take advantage of that. And definitely get outside. As I mentioned, the study in China, only one case was transmitted outside. So being outside is a great way, as I've talked about before, get those lungs in shape. If you happen to get this, you're going to want that. So I think getting outside is extremely important right now for your mental and physical health. And then finally, I think wearing a mask, and in some cases gloves, both of those are fine when you're going to be inside and close to other people.
Okay.
So try to stay that 6 feet away. And I think if you do those things, we shouldn't be afraid of this thing.
Right. Now that leads me to my next question. This is a virus. This is a virus, and virus is not going to go away. It's not all of a sudden going to pack its suitcase and leave Dodge City. It's going to be around for a long time, or maybe for eternity. How are we going to combat and live with this virus in the future?
Well, I'm glad you put it that way, because everyone's talking about the second wave, the third wave, and all this. There's not going to be waves. This is in our population. It's going to be what we call endemic. There's 6 major coronaviruses that affect humans, and believe it or not, there's 5,000 that bats have. So that's how this happened. But they're around, and they're always going to be around, And so what do we need? We need treatments that work. I'm very happy about remdesivir. You've heard me bring that up before, and I've been talking about that drug for a while. Really good results showed that instead of having 15 days, it shortened your course to 11 days. That was significant. And mortality on this drug went from 11.6 down to 8%. It was almost statistically significant, and by the end of this data, we'll probably find that it was. So we need a treatment. We have one now, and Gilead is making it available. And then, of course, the vaccine.
Now, what about, and I'm going to be very blunt, I don't think President Trump did anything wrong when he was told by advisors about the possible usage of hydroxychloroquine. I said it right, I hope. And he's taken a lot of heat from the left because they said he was advocating it. No, I don't think so. He was saying that in cases it had worked and had helped people. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of hydroxychloroquine because it was never designed to really kill viruses. However, we don't have all the data in yet, and until we do, I'm not telling my doctors not to use it. I'm just saying be very cautious about the risks. However, I would not use it with azithromycin. In China and in France, they use that combination. And I think that's a bad combination because it increased the risks of heart arrhythmia. So I'm not willing to say 100% don't use it. My gut instinct is we're not going to see a big effect. However, I'm more skeptical. But I think it's okay if President Trump brings up things only if he puts it in context. And I think he needs to put it in context and say, hey, this sounds good, but I'm going to rely on my doctors. And we'll look what the data says.
Absolutely. Dr. Durrell, let me ask you this question. It seems like, and I heard a report on this yesterday, that half of the deaths, and I want to be really careful how I word this, every life is so important, and the losing of every life that has died with this virus is extremely sad. But they have said that half of the deaths attributed to the coronavirus have been with people 80 years or older. Did we fail by not addressing the senior citizens first and foremost and maybe stopping or somewhat curtailing this virus?
Yes, I do think the tragedy of this, there are many tragedies, but one of the tragedies is really nursing homes and assisted living facilities like that. They were such at high risk, and I think early on they should have been kind of sanctuaries. I mean, we should have had them kind of walled off. We need to have facilities where if you need to leave and go to one from the hospital, we have a place that only has COVID patients. So we should have taken most cities and made some of these nursing homes or rehab buildings just for COVID patients, which they've done in some cities. I think we should have been more proactive on that because we have lost, tragically, so many lives. Once it gets in a nursing home, it's kind of like on a cruise ship. It's going to spread, as we talked about, and I think we were a little late on that. We should have been putting more priority on it.
But don't you think, to be fair to all sides of this issue, that when the virus was released from China and basically enveloped the entire world, over 187 countries are suffering because of this coronavirus, don't you think that this is a one-bullet Barney, so to speak? You didn't know what to do and you didn't know what to shoot at?
Yes. Oh, I think that's true, but I think the evidence for that is what I've been saying, and I keep saying it was around longer than we knew. And everybody wants to debate me on that, and they want to say, oh, no, because if it was been around longer, Zeb, that means a lot more people have had it than we know.
Right.
That means the infection rate, fatality rate is much lower. And there are some people that they'll literally say, I don't want that message to get out because, people won't take it seriously. And I'm really opposed to that. Let's just call the data what it is. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that we now know there was a case in France in December. There was a documented case in France in December. So think about that. There's a case in France in December. People are going from France to the U.S. I think it's been around a lot longer. And so for that reason, we weren't prepared at all. This was around when the Chinese didn't even let us know about it.
Doctor, how do we, this is the last question, I'm running out of time, but how do we go back to normal? And let me just state this. I believe normalcy is going to the baseball game and cheering my Chicago Cubs on. I believe that normalcy is going to my grandson's graduation. I believe that normalcy is going out and being with people on a Friday night having dinner. Can we return to any normalcy in your foreseeable future?
I think we can, but there'll be a new normal. So, for example, I think that the NFL is going to have reduced capacity seating. And I already saw that the Miami Dolphins are considering this. So instead of having 60,000, they're going to have something like 20,000, and there'll be distancing between, people watching the game. I think that you may see people wearing masks. They may be required at NFL games if you're sitting in a full stadium. I think that restaurants, they're going to now really strictly adhere to this distancing, and I think we'll be able to do that soon. Again, just be very careful being close to other people, and they're going to now reduce their capacity too, so you won't have as many people in there. And so I think that if we use masks, good hand hygiene, and some distancing, so if you went to a graduation, you're probably not sitting next to each other. I think we're going to have a new normal of maybe 4 seats in between, which is going to have its own issues. But I think we will see this kind of thing throughout the fall.
I guess at the risk of sounding too facetious on a very serious matter, when you mention the Miami Dolphins, they normally, as of late in the last few years, only get 20,000 people per game anyway.
That's a really good point. So they're already on their strategy. I think they'll be okay.
I'm sorry. It sounds to me like that may be your favorite team. Am I correct?
No, it's not. I just think that's a great insight now that I think about it. You know, they've I guess the teams that have poor attendance are going to be best suited in the future.
Absolutely.
To do well with us.
Dr. Dennis Durrell, you are a super guest on the radio, and I always look forward to having you on the air. He's the author of Your Healthcare Playbook, Winning the Game of Modern Medicine. God bless you, sir. Please come back.
God bless you. Happy to be back anytime, Zeb. Take care.
Thank you very, very much. Straight shooter, and I enjoy him, Dr. Dennis Durrell, and we will have him back in the very near future for an update as to what's going on. Talking about updates, holy moly, I got to get a weather forecast on here right now. Pick up this pile of papers over here, Zeb. There you go. Our weather this hour is brought to you by our friends, and they are the professionals. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. I am extremely, and I underline the word extremely, impressed with what they do, how they do it, and how they serve their clients. They've been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years with the best of tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, financial statement preparation, retirement planning, and so much more. I'm impressed. You will be too. Don't forget they have offices in Burley and Rupert. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. The professionals. Here's Gina with the weather.
Sunny skies for today, but wind is definitely going to be a factor. Here's a look at your weather forecast for today. We are expecting mostly sunny skies by the time we hit the afternoon, but the wind is definitely going to be a factor, and we're going to be in a wind advisory from about noon until 10 o'clock tonight. Gusts as high as 50 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 67 for tonight. Hopefully that's going to be dying down just a little bit. Clear skies in the overnight hours, and we are expecting a low of 33 for tomorrow. Sunny skies, high of 63 with an overnight low of 36 by Friday. It is going to be warming up. Sunny skies, highs in the low 70s, mid-70s by Saturday, possibly 80 by Sunday. That's a look at your weather for Zebeth Rand.
I'm telling you, that sounds like a really good forecast. We got to kind of batten down the hatches this afternoon for the wind. Our weather brought to you by Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And I'm pretty high on these folks. They do a great job of accounting services to you and me. Serving the Mini-Cash area, and they've got offices at 625th Street in Rupert and 1710 Overland in Burley. The professionals, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Wow, good forecast. And we've got some more great people coming up next hour. We're going to be talking to James Rosebush. And he's got a book called Winning Your Audience, Deliver a Message with the Confidence of a President. I'm anxious to talk to him about that. And then at 10:30, Pacific Legal Foundation attorney Tony Francois, so don't miss that. I want to remind you, too, about our old buddy Scott Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service and tree trimming and all of this. I'm telling you, nobody better for landscaping ideas and tree trimming and, the wind. I bet you there's going to be a lot of trees that need to be rebuffed and put back in shape with some trimming after this afternoon if it gets that windy. Well, they can and they will help you. Scott Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service, 438-2485. Write that number down. I'll say it again, 438-2485. You call, make an appointment to the best, Scott Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service. Absolutely. Tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer. And at the end of the program, we're going to do just that, have a prayer for our country. And then next Monday, we have a new segment that's starting on our program. After Vicky's Country Gardens and after the weather, we're going to go into a new segment called Dog Days. Yep, Dog Days with the Minidoka County Animal Control, and the officer, Deb Hines, is going to be on talking about the puppy dogs over there and their possession. And so you be sure and tune in at 10:47 on Mondays for a new segment called Dog Days. I haven't even had a chance to tell Wheels all about that yet. We're going to take a little break. I want to urge you, if you have not sent in for your ballot for the May 19th primary, do so. Go to idahovotes.gov or call your county clerks, and they can give you the information necessary to make sure you get your ballot. Don't forget, fill it out, send it in. Be a part of America. Okay, we're going to take a little break and send it now back over to Wheels, and he's going to take us up to CBS News. They'll kind of mess up everything we've put together. We'll be back in about 7 minutes. There's gold in them thar hills, I'll tell you. Good morning, everybody. Zeb at the Ranch, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. Very safe, clean environment, and the best in tires, always at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. And, of course, don't forget our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, also our friends at Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Beautiful, beautiful location for seniors, and it's a fantastic 12-bedroom home with, of course, 3 meals a day, snacks, housekeeping, local transportation. Seniors, if you're within the sound of my voice, I urge you, if you're looking for a place to reside and be with your friends, this is it. Greystone Crossing, and call Matt or Kelly Wiggins at 650-4979. I'll repeat that number, 650-4979. Make an appointment to see this beautiful facility, Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Wheels, old buddy, can we please have the word for the May 19th primary?
Idaho's primary election is on Tuesday, May 19th. Here's Speaker of the House Scott Bedke to explain this year's voting by mail.
This year it's going to be a little different. You will be getting an absentee ballot request form in the mail. Fill it out. Send it in. Then the county clerk will send you an absentee ballot form. This is how you vote. Fill it out. Mail it in by May 19th. If you have other questions, don't hesitate to call your county clerk's office. Paid for by Bedke for Idaho.
Thank you, Scott. And also a quick reminder about 7K medals. My wife and I have been introduced to 7K medals about 6-7 weeks ago. And we can buy silver and have it shipped directly right to our home. Absolutely. The folks at 7K medals helping you build your financial security and future. And it's a valued treasure for your loved ones in the future. Find out more about investing in financial security property and wealth protection with 7K Metals. Contact Lon Hardy at 312-8699 or Sharon Wilmot at 430-3259. Mention my name. Tell them I told you to call 7K Metals. Wheels, if you could turn up the feed line to my headsets just a little bit, I'd appreciate it as we get ready to go to our guest right now that has written an outstanding book that I really can't wait to read. It sounds really interesting. This man, his name is James Rosebush with the book Winning Your Audience. Deliver a message with the confidence of a president. Good morning, James. How are you?
Hey, great to be with you, Zeb, and all your great listeners out there.
Well, it's our pleasure, sir, and you've got quite a few credentials behind you and this book. First and foremost, I understand that you're a former deputy assistant to President Reagan, my favorite president, and also the chief of staff to First Lady Nancy Reagan. You are the man I need to talk to. I tell you what, I thought the world of Ronald Reagan. What was he really like behind the scenes?
Well, you know, that's a great question, and so many people want to know that because Ronald Reagan was pretty closed in terms of explaining who he was. In my last book, which was a bestseller, they would call True Reagan, which is the only book that explains Ronald Reagan from the inside out. So he was a man of tremendous faith. He was an egoless person. I have to tell you, Zeb, he was the president who left the White House, the same man who entered there. I can't say the same for a lot of other heads of state. One I'm familiar with and had spent time with was Margaret Thatcher. Unfortunately, she was a person who felt that in the years that she served the UK, that she became more important in her own eyes. And I think that was something that brought about her a fall from the position that she occupied. But I think in terms of Reagan, and I think of that last talk he gave from the Oval Office in his last day there in the White House, and he explains, he says, I don't think I've ever explained what I meant when I talked about this shining city on a hill. So Reagan was a person who was imbued with inspiration. He was imbued with a love of American ideals, of the U.S. Constitution. And, Zeb, he was an evangelist for freedom. Anywhere he could find freedom-loving, freedom-seeking people, anywhere in the world. You know, it was interesting. Reagan considered, after graduating from Eureka College, going to divinity school with his best friend. And I would say if he'd become a preacher in a church, he might have given sermons to thousands, but as President of the United States, he was able to evangelize for millions.
You know, it's so interesting to hear you talk about him because you knew the man, and I watched him in the 80s and before that, of course, when he was the host and moderator of the television show that was a long TV series called Death Valley Days, and prior to that, he had starred in a lot of kind of grade B westerns, and it's really hard to imagine that that man from those movie sets went into the Oval Office.
But, you know, he always said when they tried to actually belittle him by saying, well, you were a screen actor, he said, it's hard for me to imagine that anyone could be president without acting experience. And, you know, when you're in a position of leading millions and millions of people, and you have to be the person that the people are looking to for guidance, for strength, for security, you have to be a person who can communicate. This is why I wrote this book. This book is for everyone, and it's based on how Reagan did it. You have to have two things, Zeb. You have to have something that you believe in that is a durable message that is not only needs to be heard by your constituents or your audience, but it's something that you actually believe in. And number two, you have to have the skill to transport that message to your audience. Now, Reagan, it just happened that he had both. But remember, that first job he had after he graduated from Eureka College, he was a broadcaster for the Chicago Cubs.
That's right.
And few people have even realized this, Steph, that in those days, you weren't up in a glass-enclosed, heated booth where you were calling the game for the audience. He wasn't even near the ball field. He was miles and miles away. And this was all being telegraphed to him what was happening on the ball field. So Reagan had to create these plays, and he was ranked number one among the radio commentators calling baseball games because he had this imagination. So this is long before he went into into the next stage of his career, which is as a screen actor, but he had this imagination. Now, I'm going to tell you that the best way to communicate your message is if you can picture in your own mind what it is you're saying. Think about Reagan. He had to picture what was going on in the ball field. He wasn't actually even seeing it with his own physical eyes. He had to imagine it with his own thought. Then he had to paint the picture for his audience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is how you can win your audience. You have to imagine, you have to be a storyteller, and you have to tell that story to your audience. And you know, in the business that you're in, every day what you're doing is telling stories. Now, this is all people want to hear. They want, when it gets right down to it, you say, well, what do you want to hear? You're an audience. What do you want to hear? You know what they want to hear? They want to hear stories. And as a young guy, my dad was a Dale Carnegie teacher. He taught people on how to speak. He was a General Motors executive, and he was a musician, and he passed all those three things on to me. But I had to figure it out for myself. As a young person, I went to the Soviet Union. I was followed by intelligence officers. I warranted a dossier built on me because they thought I was a spy. I wasn't. I was there to meet with officials. I was sent there by the Rotary Club. But when I came back to this country, I had to go out and speak to Rotary clubs about this. And I realized two things I had. I had stories to tell about my experience there, and that gave me the confidence to actually cross the bridge to the audience. We call it building a bridge to the audience. I had to have respect for my audience, and I did because I appreciated the fact that they paid me to go on this junket. And those are the two things that made me a durable and effective speaker to those Rotary clubs all those years ago.
Let me ask you this, James. Of all the presidents that come to mind, I think the most eloquent and the one I like to listen to the most because he felt like he was talking directly to me was Ronald Reagan. Now, of all the presidents before and after Reagan, I think some of the worst speakers have been Bill Clinton, and then now, as much as I admire what he's trying to do for our country and the economy, Donald Trump. Donald could take some lessons from what you're talking about. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, isn't that interesting? So I'm doing tremendous amount of, I'm out there speaking a lot now about this book and other things, and I coach people on how to speak too. So people are always saying to me, but Trump, if you could only get in there. And I remember when my last book came out, we were having dinner with some people in New York, right across the street from Trump Tower. And they were supporters of Donald Trump, financial supporters at the time. They said, could we just take you across the street to Trump Tower? We want to take you up to his apartment, and we want you to teach him how to speak. And I said, well, that's very humbling that you would ask me to do that. However, I don't think Donald Trump is going to take a lesson from anyone. And here's why. I talked to a lot of people for writing this book, and I said, well, what do you think about Donald Trump? Oh, we love the way Donald Trump talks. And I said, well, how is that? It's very non-traditional. It's very much of this time. And they said, we love the way Donald Trump talks. You know why? Because we'd like to talk that way if we had the ability to do it. We'd like to talk back to the media. We would like to talk the way he does because, he's fighting for us. We had the idea that he's fighting for American principles, that he's fighting for the underdog. And that's what he proved in the last election. So, I would have to say, Zeb, I would not talk that way. I would talk in other ways. I wouldn't fuel my opponents. I wouldn't continue a bad story. The Reagans, they taught me a million lessons on how to communicate. And that is always put bad news out on Friday night and good news out on Monday morning.
That's true.
You want to cut short the bad news, and you want to extend the good news. Now, Trump does pretty much the opposite. He extends the bad news. But think about it. Trump is an unconventional president, and we need an unconventional president at this time. We need someone who's questioning everything. And I have to say, having been there, I understand. I know what the media is doing. They're looking for a story, and the only way that they can get a story, they think, is to create controversy, and that's what they're told to do by their bosses. I get it, and I also understand we're a two-party country, and it's the job of the opposing party, the party that's not in power, to get the person in power out. Now, Trump has been so successful and has done so much for our country in such a short period of time that they want to remove him. Why? For political purposes. I get it. It's a part of their job. Now, I think that when you reach that pinnacle of power, there's no more important job in the entire universe than being president of the United States. And I think that you need to get to that point where you've achieved this, and you have to say to yourself, I don't need to fight anymore. I've achieved this. This is what I'm going to share. Now, Reagan was more like that. Now, we have to realize Reagan was a conflict-averse person. He never wanted controversy. He didn't want conflict. He couldn't fire anyone. He always told us, don't get into skirmishes with the media because you'll never win, which to a certain extent is very true. Again, a million lessons I learned from Reagan that way. I think that people felt when Reagan was talking, they loved listening to Reagan, as you mentioned, because he was not talking, and he wouldn't say to you, for example, this is what I think you should do. No. What Reagan would do is he would quote the Patriots, he would quote the prophets, he would quote previous presidents, and then you remember with humor, he would say, if he quoted Thomas Jefferson, he would say, well, and I know that's true because I knew Thomas Jefferson, you know, as a little make humor about and make fun of the fact that people called him an old president. So he knew actually what his audience was looking to hear, and he also knew, and this is like Trump, if he could reach his audience unfettered and unfiltered by the media, he could convince anyone of anything, and that's why he was called the Teflon president and the great communicator.
Let me say this, though, James, and see if you agree with me. I think that Donald Trump could be much more effective if he would listen to voice coaches about his monotone delivery and try to have more of a voice inflection and more rehearsal on some of the canned speeches on the teleprompter. I think with more peaks and valleys and inflection, he could get his point across and sound warmer and friendlier. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I agree completely. Listen, Zeb, I wake up, I dream about this in the middle of the night. I wake up and I think if I could only spend, even if Trump gave me 15 minutes, and if I were able to teach him about the importance of emphasis and where you want to bring the meaning out and the warmth of your voice, you know, I have a million lessons that I would love to teach him. Absolutely, no question. And I have to say, also, let's look back at Reagan. If you, and I have several copies of his speeches that he marked up, things, maybe speeches where I made some suggestions or he was referring to something that I had done, and where he's made notes on the side. If you look at a presidential speech, and this is what, so I coach presidents of companies and salespeople, all walks of life. And they're surprised when I tell them this. If you look at a presidential speech, it's all marked up. It's marked up for emphasis, phrasing, color. You know, the way you actually write a speech, if you have to give a speech by reading it, it's all marked up by what I call speaking grammar. So it's not correct in terms of grammar that you would use in writing a book, but it is correct in the way you speak. Because we speak using contractions. We do different kinds of phrasing, and you can bring out meaning in your speech many, many, many times greater if you understand the laws of proper emphasis. Now, Reagan knew this. British speakers knew this. Churchill knew this. And I'll give you a concrete example, going back to Reagan for a second. When Reagan goes to the Brandenburg Gate, and he gives one of his most famous speeches about the wall, notice this. Reagan says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Now, that would be, if you isolate that sentence, and you would say, oh, no, you would never say tear down this wall. You'd say, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Well, Reagan had been talking for about 10 minutes before that And by the way, he kept in that phrase, even though every cabinet official marked it off in the drafts for that speech. And Reagan gets to the Brandenburg Gate, he gets out of his limousine, and he says to his personal aide, the boys at the State Department aren't going to like this. They wanted to keep him from saying this. Reagan was his own best advisor. He would listen to what cabinet officials and briefers had to say, and then he would make his own decision. I like that. I think that's also something that Trump has as well. So, but let's go back to this speech. So he's been talking about walls, all kinds of walls that keep people from freedom. So then he gets to this specific wall, and guess what? He tells Gorbachev exactly what he wants Gorbachev to do with this wall. And he developed enough of a relationship with Gorbachev by then that he knew that if he said this to Gorbachev, Gorbachev would do it. In this case, he allowed the wall to be torn down. So Reagan says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall if you're serious about freedom, if you're serious about in improving your standard of living and your quality of life in your country. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
You know, I would add something to the fray of our conversation that you haven't mentioned, but I think you can very eloquently, and that's the advantage that President Reagan had as having Nancy Reagan as his wife. She also was very articulate and could make her points go across easily because of her past career in acting in Hollywood, and both of them were very articulate and made people listen.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned her because I just wrote yesterday an article for Thrive Global, which is Ariana Huffington's latest media platform. And I tell this story, it's a very brief one. I accompanied Nancy Reagan to a drug abuse rehabilitation center graduation. It was in a massive gymnasium in northern Florida. There were thousands of kids that learned that night whether they were going to get to go home, be with their parents, having achieved sobriety or not. And we were there for about, I don't know, probably 6 hours in total. I mean, it was a very, very long, extremely emotional. So the kids would run to the middle of the room. They would announce the results or not. Some of the kids didn't get to go home. And everyone was crying. I have to tell you, Zeb, even the Secret Service was crying. And they're not allowed to cry. And we had the White House press corps there. Well, Nancy Reagan had her text of her remarks that she was set to make, and those were all had been put together with her, and we had a speechwriter on our staff and that sort of thing. Well, she and I looked at each other, and the emotion of the evening, we just kind of said, well, this isn't going to work. So she goes up to the center of this massive gymnasium, she takes the microphone, and she turns to the parents, and first she says, I just want to talk to you first. And I always get goosebumps telling this story. And she tells them how much she loves them, how much she understands what they've been going through, blah, blah, blah. She turns to the kids. She tells them how much she loves them and how much she's there for them and how much blah, blah, blah. So in the motorcade on the back, going back to the hotel where we were staying that night, we were just exhausted. And I said to her, just the two of us in the back seat of the limousine, I said, you know what you did tonight? You did something that reminds me of this quotation that someone wrote. Whenever the heart speaks, however simple the words, they're always acceptable to those who have heart.
Absolutely.
And that night was the next day, from that night, what happened was the next day, the White House press corps is saying to me, wow, that was Nancy Reagan's best speech. Well, why was it? In looking back, and this is a great example, it's because she spoke from the heart.
Absolutely.
That's what she was doing. She was speaking from the heart. And I think if you, we're not all out there giving graduation speeches at drug rehab centers. But if you're speaking from the heart, that is what you really mean and what you believe, that will be felt by your audience.
Absolutely. James, real quick, I've only got 30 seconds left in this segment. Your book, Winning Your Audience, Deliver a Message with the Confidence of a President. Where can my audience find a copy of your book?
Oh, and boy, Zeb, thank you. Everyone's got to get this book. I wrote it for everyone, no matter whether you're teaching your kids to eat dinner and when to go to bed at night, or whether you're the CEO of a company. It's #1 Amazon bestseller. So you can get that at Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, any local bookstore. Get this book. Don't fail to get this because it will transform your life.
I hope you'll come back in the future. Thank you, James Rosebush. I appreciate it. God bless you, and thank you for your time this morning.
Right back at you, Zeb. Thanks so much, and to your audience.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to have that man back, and I've got to get a copy of that book. It sounds like it's really a home run. Winning Your Audience, Deliver a Message with the Confidence of a President, written by James Rosebush. Holy smokes, I'm running late, which is nothing unusual. I want to remind you about our friends at Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley. Oh, my goodness sakes, every day they get there with all your electronic needs right there at one location. All the home theater systems and the video surveillance cameras, the car stereos and speakers. Oh man, they've got the best of car audio systems, let me tell you. And of course, all your television sets. You work hard, you want to come home, relax, watch your favorite TV show, they've got the best. From Samsung, Sony, Toshiba, LG TVs, all of this and more. They're open Monday through Saturday 9 to 6, and we're talking about Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley, with Curtis and Lorena and the staff. Number to call, 678-6997. Also, real quick, I want to remind everybody about Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. They are back in full swing, absolutely, and they're open for business with regular hours. No appointments needed, just come on in. 40 to 50% off on everything in the store. Lee's Furniture is doing their spring cleaning, and you're making the saving. Absolutely. Everything is on sale. Sofas, chairs, floor covering, carpet, you name it, you stop in and see them today. Jeff and the crew at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Right now, Wheels, it's all yours.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, thank you very much. And before we get our guest on the phone, I want to remind you folks again, anybody within the sound of my voice, business for sale for you. What a great opportunity. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, 635 21st Street in Hayburn. I mean, a beautiful brand new building and all the equipment, all the tools, everything right there at Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. And besides that being a turnkey operation, Doug will also train the buyer of the business. I mean, the best, teaching you how to be successful. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. For sale, 635 21st Street in Hayburn. Number to call, 878-4991 or 431-5282. Don't forget, Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair. Let's go to the phone line right now, and every single time this gentleman is on my program, he is extremely helpful and knowledgeable about the subjects that we're talking about. Attorney Tony Francois with the Pacific Legal Foundation. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm well. How are you doing today?
Hanging in, hanging on. We got 50-mile-an-hour breeze outside. I'm holding on to the knot, man. I don't want to let loose.
I hear you.
Tony, what in the world, I got to ask you, you've talked about this before, but I guess as a farmer, rancher, person in agriculture, I am sick and tired of hearing about the EPA and navigable waters and how the EPA wants to come in and do more regulatory means and methods on private property. What's going on?
Well, as you mentioned, we've talked many times before in the context of different cases. The Sacketts there in Priest Lake, Idaho, Joe Robertson over in Montana, other cases. You've got this decades-long pattern of the EPA and the Army, actually, using their regulatory authority under the Clean Water Act, which, by its terms, regulates pollution of navigable waters. Their decades-long history of stretching that authority by considering mud puddles and arroyos that down which a rainstorm will flow, and just things that are wet from time to time as navigable waters and therefore subject to their regulation. And this has been a problem that the Trump administration has confronted. They've had a new version. The EPA has written a new version of the regulations that define navigable waters in the Clean Water Act. And it's kind of a glass half full, glass half empty picture. The regulations the new regulations are a significant improvement over what the agencies have claimed authority over in the past, but probably no surprise because their past history has been so egregious. The new regulations still include lots of features that you're going to find on the average farm and ranch that will remain subject to EPA control. So the actions that we're taking now that the regulatory process is done, we're in court, in federal court in Oregon, Washington, and New Mexico to challenge the portions of this new rule that still overreach, but at the same time to acknowledge that the reforms, the improvements in the rule are quite good and should go into effect. And so it's an important step forward, but not enough steps forward to get those agencies within their legal authority.
I guess as a person looking at this issue that also owns property in a rural area and has been in the livestock business all my life, I'm sitting here trying to come up with any kind of common sense that would apply to navigable waters. Navigable waters as being a puddle out in my front yard. Help me.
Well, that's difficult to do, frankly, because for many years, what the EPA has said is that word navigable in this statute doesn't really mean boats float on it and carry goods from one side of the lake to the other, or from Idaho down through Washington to the Pacific Ocean. In their view, it doesn't really mean anything. And the Supreme Court, although very early on, about 35 years ago, said, that maybe that's okay. More recently, the Supreme Court has said multiple times, nah, that's too much, okay? But the Supreme Court's never clarified what navigable means for this statute. And as a result, the agencies are left to define it for themselves, which is kind of a problem. Like I say, the latest version of the regulations is closer, and I think the administration deserves the credit it gets for a pretty significant reform. And now it's going to be up to the courts to finish that work of identifying what water bodies are actually navigable for purposes of this statute that the agencies can regulate. And our view is that, and we think this is a pretty common sense view, that intermittent streams that maybe flow for a couple of weeks or a couple of months a year across your ranch are not navigable, not protected by the Clean Water Act. They may be regulated by local or state law. But you don't need a federal permit from the United States Army to do erosion control or plant a crop or any of the other wide variety of things that you've got to do with your own property to make it productive and earn a living.
Would you agree with this statement that basically private property ownership and rights of private property are like a baseball home run? Going, gone.
Well, I can see where that. I can see why that's the feeling that a lot of people have. Pacific Legal Foundation, we're more optimistic than that for a couple of reasons. We think that there have been some significant improvements in the way that you see federal agencies giving more thoughtful consideration to whether their regulations, impair private property. A lot of work left to do on that, but at least they're thinking and talking about that. Secondly, this president's appointments to the federal judiciary take all of the rights in the Bill of Rights, including private property, much more seriously and much more at face value, and are less likely to say, well, these, your property rights have to give way because we have this important government purpose that, has to override them. So I would say in the long term, we're going to see a very good sort of resurgence of protection of private property at the federal level, and there are good signs going on at the state level as well.
What about the people, like the cases in Wyoming and the cases in California, northern Idaho, etc., where people have just absolutely lost their life savings? They've lost all their will to really have a good and decent life on their property, and they've lost all their money. What about reimbursement? What about litigation to recoup or regain what the EPA and some of these frivolous, stupid rules have cost them?
Yeah, so that's an important remedy that it takes a lot of resolve to pursue. The government is always very unwilling to reimburse people for the harm they cause. That's an issue that we're very much involved in, and while I can't speak to or things that haven't yet been announced for any of our clients, it is clear in the law. For example, when either the Army Corps or the EPA, refuses you a permit to develop your property because of the Clean Water Act, that there can be compensation due for that. There are reforms that would be valuable, which Congress could make, that make that a simpler process, and the Congress really ought to look at the statutes that regulate how you go through the Court of Federal Claims and, your ability to get a jury trial on a takings claim and things like that. But, generally, it's a long fight, but an important one, and we're very proud of the clients that we have the privilege of representing, because they are standing up and fighting against both the permitting assertions that the agencies make, and then the need to be compensated once their property is taken.
Tony, when you sit down and analyze what really is going on in Congress, you mentioned Congress just a moment ago, and I have in my mind's eye, and tell me if I'm wrong or right, but I've got in my mind's eye a lot of common sense about water usage and private property rights for people and states west of the Mississippi. But when you get east of the Mississippi and you're talking about the great big urban landscape and all the population, etc., I honestly don't think that legislators, congressmen, and senators really have a sense at all of common sense.
Well, it's a tough problem. One of the reasons for that is that for many, many decades, instead of doing their job as Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, which is deciding what the rules are and then facing the voters for the rules that they adopt, Congress has been outsourcing that important work, the decision about what the laws are going to be, which the Constitution vests entirely in the Congress, to executive branch agencies like the EPA, the Army Corps, the IRS, the SEC, the alphabet soup out there. And so they outsource these tough decisions that they don't want accountability for to bureaucrats that don't have any accountability, and do all this stuff in secret instead of taking public votes and things like that. And so Congress has gotten into the habit of shirking its responsibility to make the hard decisions and then face the voters for those decisions. And as a result, they sort of lost the muscle tone, if you will, for thinking about and talking about and taking responsibility for these kinds of decisions. Our hope, or one of our objectives in our work at Pacific Legal Foundation, is to convince the federal courts, which are moving in this direction, that the Congress has to retain those key policy decisions, that Congress has to make the tough decisions that require accountability, and that their effort to shove that off on agency bureaucrats is actually unconstitutional. If they're confronted with those responsibilities and have to make those hard calls, I do think, it may not be overnight, but I do think it will be forthcoming, that we'll get different kinds of conversations and different kinds of decisions in Congress, and we'll get different kinds of people who will be problem solvers instead of, pounding the podium at the crazy thing that, XYZ agency did, when XYZ agency is just executing the broad authority that Congress, imprudently delegated to them.
What an oxymoron that I'd never thought of before. Congress and problem solvers. That's amazing.
Well, it's got a fascinating history. I like to point out that the thing, two of the statutes that I spent a lot of my professional time on, the Endangered Species Act and the Clean Water Act. In the last 20 years, there have been various efforts 15 years, there have been various efforts to reform both of those statutes in Congress, none of which has gone anywhere to any serious degree. Amazingly, both those statutes, so they were both passed by Congress in the early 1970s, and both of them were amended in the late 1970s in a bipartisan way as Congress observed and learned from the problems that the original versions of both of those statutes created. So, I like to think of it as, one of Congress's rare lucid moments, but in the late 1970s, Congress amended both the Endangered Species Act and the Clean Water Act to ensure that they had a less severe and an unreasonable impact, particularly on rural property owners. And so I think it does say something that Congress is just unable these days to confront and solve those kinds of things, and that part of the reason for that is that they're far too able to simply pass the buck to XYZ agency.
Absolutely.
You people go make these hard calls, and we'll just issue press releases.
Absolutely. Please tell everybody in my audience, Tony, how they can follow all the stories that are going on with the Pacific Legal Foundation.
Very simple. Our website, pacificlegal.org. If you're a social media participant, you can follow us on Twitter at Pacific Legal. And those are the best ways to learn what we're doing, and especially learn the stories about our clients who are, brave and principled people who are standing up to the government and whom it's a very great privilege to represent.
Absolutely. I always look forward to having you come on. Very articulate, very knowledgeable attorney Tony Francois. Thank you so much, sir. God bless. Come back soon.
Will do. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
All right, sir. Thank you. Really interesting about the EPA, navigable waters, quote, and, of course, our rights as private property owners. We'll have more on that, you can bet, in the future. All right, it's time for the weather. But before we do, I want to highlight, of course, Edith's Cafe. What a great place to go eat. And they also do catering. And they also have a food trailer for the trucking industry over at 2500 Washington across from Fabrical. I mean, it's room for the semis to get through and park and everything. I'm telling you, this is great. And Edith's Cafe with what delicious menu choices at 144 East Highway 81 in Burley, right across from the golf course. They're open Tuesday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., Fridays and Saturdays, 11 to 9. I'm telling you, I'm proud to announce that they are serving you delicious food at Edith's Cafe. Again, 144 East Highway 81 in Burley. You stop in and see them today. Let's see what else have I got cooking here. Mother's Day is Sunday. Please don't forget to get Mom a special gift and a little note, a card about how much you appreciate her and all that she's done for you. Right now it's time for the weather. And then we'll take some more phone calls. The weather being brought to us by Scarro's Meats, Don Scarrow and the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. Go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com. Woo! Check out all the delicious meats for you, your family, and any occasion, whether it's the marinated pork ribs or the St. Louis-style ribs, or whether it might be the tri-tips or the bacons, all the kinds of bacons, and the hams and the bratwurst. Oh, I'm starving to death. It sounds so good. Don Scarrow and his crew at Scarrow's Meats, 324-7657. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Sunny skies for today, but wind is definitely going to be a factor. Here's a look at your weather forecast for today. We are expecting mostly sunny skies by the time we hit the afternoon, but the wind is definitely going to be a factor, and we're going to be in a wind advisory from about noon until 10 o'clock tonight, gusts as high as 50 miles an hour. We are expecting a high of 67 for tonight. Hopefully that's going to be dying down just a little bit. Clear skies in the overnight hours, and we are expecting a low of 33 for tomorrow. Sunny skies, high of 63 with an overnight low of 36 by Friday. It is going to be warming up. Sunny skies, highs in the low 70s, mid-70s by Saturday, possibly 80 by Sunday. That's a look at your weather for Zebeth Ranch.
Oh, thank you very much, Gina, and brought to everybody by Scarrow's Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Delicious meats. Don Scarrow and the rest of the crew serving you, and I urge you to either call them, like I said, 324-7657, or stop over. 331 North Road, Jerome, and that's Scarrow's Meats. And on camera right now, for those of you that are watching on national TV on my website, zebbell.com, I want you to meet Festus. Festus is our new little puppy dog, and he's a little corgi. Oh, go over here, Festus. Look at the camera. There you go. He's on my shoulder right now, and he just said hello to the entire United States. Thank you very much. Scarrow's Meats, bringing you the weather, changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. I've got a time right now for calls. I got time for one or two more. Don't forget again, Mother's Day is coming up this Sunday. Don't forget Mom. Mom has done so much. Mom has been a part of all of our lives. Mom, of course, helped form the family, keep the family going. God bless moms. And whether you go get her a great big bouquet of flowers or a special gift or card or whatever, try to get together with her, spend some time, and say, thank you, Mom, for all that you've done. I mentioned this earlier this morning, that on Monday, starting next Monday at 10:47 on my program, we're going to have a new segment that's going to be sponsored by the Minidoka County Animal Control, and the person that's going to be on the air with me is Control Officer Deb Hines, and we're going to call it Dog Days, and we're going to be featuring some of the puppy dogs over there that are looking for a new home and looking for somebody to give them a little bit of love, and so we're going to be talking about that on Mondays at 10:47 right here on Zebeth Ranch. And I want to say thanks to Deb and everybody else connected with the Minidoka County Animal Control for helping me with this program. Then tomorrow is National Day of Prayer. I don't think that I have to say too much more, that at this particular time, all of us that believe, and I hope it's most of us, get down on our knees and ask for help, ask for guidance, and ask for these times to go away and be replaced with happier times, healthier times for our families, our businesses, and everything else. The National Day of Prayer tomorrow, and we're going to have a special little segment, Create Some Time, and we're going to have a special prayer at the end of our program tomorrow on Zeb at the Ranch. Another quick note, if you have not got your ballot, and I did have some calls from some folks yesterday that said, now wait a minute, we're not sure what to do. We've been telling you on this program for at least the last month, go to, if you have a computer, idahovotes.gov. and request your ballot online, okay? If you have any other questions, call your county clerk, excuse me for choking, and they can give you any and all the information that you need to obtain a ballot. Now, if you have questions, please don't hesitate, whether you're in Cassia County, Minidoka County, Twin Falls County, Jerome County, whatever, call your county clerk, and they can assist you so that we have a good ballot turnout for the May 19th primary election. Okay? By mail this year. And special thank yous go out to a man that's really been dedicated to come on the program and talk about it on numerous occasions, and that's Representative Fred Wood. Thank you, Fred, for all you've done. That's about it for today, and we're going to grab old Festus, and Deanna and I've got to run a couple of errands, and we're going to tell you that the way things were are the way things ought to be, and the 4 words that mean the most to us: in God we trust. I hope all is well with you and your family. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 8:06.